welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. Every week, hosting a conversation with someone who has excelled in business communication. And by doing that, you and I can learn tips and strategies that will help us communicate more effectively in our business. Delighted to introduce today's guest, Monica Ricci. Monica Ricci founded Catalyst Organizing in 1998 to help people create simple, joyful, powerful lives at home and at work. As a speaker, trainer, and author, Monica has written for and been quoted in hundreds of publications. She served also as a media spokesperson for Office Depot, Rubbermaid, J.C. Penney, Beazer Homes, and several others. Her many media appearances include Fox and Friends, CNN, HGTV, and she hosted a weekly radio show called Organization Nation. After 20 years in organizing and productivity, she shifted to coaching and consulting, and that's what we're going to talk with her about today. Hello, Monica. Welcome.
Hello, Bill. It's good to see you.
Great to see you. 2 decades, I knew you as someone who helped people, including me, with organizing their offices so that they could be more productive, organizing their homes for the same reason. And that, to me, had a lot to do with communication, because we can't communicate very well when we can't find something, we've misplaced something, we're frustrated and confused. And so you did that very well. It was a wonderful service for many of your clients. And now you have shifted focus. You have a new mission. So tell us about that, please.
Well, you said it 20 years ago, and I did love the organizing and productivity industry. I still consider myself in it to a degree. And when we talk a little bit more, you'll see why. It's just in a different aspect of it. And it was very gratifying to help people to get their lives and homes and heads, in order. And we talked about all kinds of things in that industry. We talked about priorities and clarity and what's most important to you and your life and what is the process that you go through to get from A to B in your life and your work. All these things, and even looking at underlying factors, which is really interesting. Underlying factors to disorganization, procrastination, things like that. I had such a great experience with that. And then it sort of just naturally grew. One thing leads to another thing. So in the beginning, I was just working with residential homeowners, and then I started working with business people, and then I got an offer to write a book, and which was great. And then I became a blogger, and then I was speaking and training, and I did a lot of TV and radio, and it's just kind of expanded organically, and it was wonderful, and I had a really great run. But a few years ago, I got to a point where I began to feel like I had done not everything that's possible in that industry, but everything that I wanted to do in that industry. When I looked at my opportunities for growing, it looked to me like I could either do a product-based business, which I had no interest in, or I could start a firm and begin employing people to do what I did, which I really had no interest in.
So one of the things you do when you're going to make a change, you look at options, and the ones that don't really fit, you eliminate them one by one until you get to the one that is your niche.
Yes, and I went through a very painful period of probably 2 years of trying to figure out what's next. And when I sat down and really connected with the heart of my business and what I loved about the business and sort of pulled it apart, what I realized I loved was helping people transform on the inside. Even though we did it largely in the external environment, it was the internal transformation that really lit me up. And so I thought, I need to do that. I need to figure out how to do more of that. And so that's how that shift happened. So I began working with business clients still, and instead of working on their environments, we worked on who they are, their processes, what are they bringing to the table, their attitudes, their beliefs about their business and what's possible. And it's really, it's morphed into a really interesting kind of a coaching consulting hybrid, and I'm really enjoying it. I really like it.
Well, I saw one phrase, you said that you work with people to help them find who you are and how you choose to show up. What's that showing up bit all about?
Showing up is, what do you bring to each situation, right? So if you've ever gone to a party or even a small gathering, and you can feel someone's energy when they come in the room or when you interact with them, you can just get a sense for them. And you can get a sense when someone is kind of a Debbie Downer or they're very negative. So how they're showing up for you is they're showing up as a negative person, or they're showing up for you as, someone that you may or may not want to be around, whereas someone else could come in and show up in a completely different way, open and curious and energetic and interesting and all those things. So how we show up is largely a function of the beliefs, the attitudes, the mindset that we live with, that we carry with us in our heads, and the lenses we look through in life. The lens you look through is very much like your car windshield. It can be covered with bugs and dirt and whatnot, and have one little spot that you can see clearly through, and that impairs your ability to see what the world could look like through a clear lens. And so that's what I mean by how you show up, is we always have a choice in how to show up, and it beginning to work on how we master that and realizing we always have a choice and then acting upon those choices. That's what this coaching is all about, is giving people that, not only the information that, hey, you do have a choice about this, but then how do you get into that mindset, and how do you shift your default so that your default is no longer negative or no longer defeatist or no longer whatever it might be. It opens up lots of possibilities.
Well, you remind me of someone I knew a good long time ago who worked with restaurants. That was his niche. And one of the things he did as a restaurant consultant, he would work with the servers, and he would say to the servers, "What percentage tips are you getting?" And they'd say, "Well, 5%, sometimes 10%." He said, "How would you like to get 20 to 25%?" And of course, that interested them tremendously. And he said, "I can tell you how to do that. And it's fairly simple." They said, "What is it?" He said, "Be present when you show up." And all of us have been to restaurants in those days when we could still go to restaurants. All of us have been to restaurants when the server would come up and we could tell their mind was somewhere else. They really didn't get the order straight. They didn't seem to be with us with empathy and interest, and they were an order taker. That's all they were, and as a result, probably the remuneration to them would be reduced. Not to penalize them, it's just that they did not involve us as much. And so it seems to me that must be the kind of thing you're driving at, where you said when a person enters the room, they have really shown up. You know that they're there. They're fully present. And I remember uh, someone talking to me about that, how that had helped them professionally. A very successful businessman who said that that idea had helped him. I'm sure that's helped a lot of people that you're working with.
It's so crazy that you said about the restaurant, because one of my loves is service. I spent 20 years in the hotel and restaurant industry before I started my organizing business. And so this coaching that I do, I'm actually beginning to shift it specifically toward customer facing individuals and teams, because of exactly what you just said. I love service. I have spent my entire life in service. And so between my love of speaking and training and my love of service, I sort of have the mindset and the heart set, and you put them together, it becomes really, really powerful when you can, in a person who is in a customer facing role, when you can bring, like you said, the being in the present and in the moment, and then you add on to that extra layers of empathy, of caring, of sincerity, of just really owning that you are in the service of a greater cause. That is absolutely a game changer for any company. If you imagine if you had every person in your company who faced your customers and clients with that kind of a mindset and showing up in that way, how powerful that would be for your customer retention, your brand loyalty, your reputation in the marketplace. And that to me is really, really exciting to be able to kind of coach on those soft, what we call soft skills, to be able to do that for companies is amazing.
I'm sure you can relate quite well to a phrase that I prefer. Instead of customer service, I like to call it customer care. And the reason I do is because you can service people without caring for them. So, and the opportunities I've had to work with groups where we were talking about customer service, I changed the terminology instantly and said, that's not enough. We want customer care instead. And as you and I know, and particularly since you've spent your life in the service industry, it doesn't take but that proverbial nanosecond for somebody to know which they are getting. Are you just serving them routinely, mechanically, or do you really want to improve their lives for this minute in some way? That must be what you're telling your clients, I guess.
It is, and I think that there are certain personalities or people who are naturally inclined to intuitively know what it is to give good customer care, to really care. But not everyone who's in a customer care role is naturally inclined that way. And so for them, it's a blind spot. They think that they care about their job, or they think that they're doing a great job, and they may be doing a good job, but they aren't necessarily inherently maybe graced with that natural, intuitive aptitude for actual caring. And that's where the coaching can come in, because anybody can be coached on anything. You could take me and coach me on how to golf. I probably wouldn't be Tiger Woods, but with good
Not,
coaching, I would
not with me
get
coaching you, you wouldn't. No.
maybe not, but I would certainly get better than what I was, even if I'm not a natural athlete. And that's really the benefit of coaching is being able to work with somebody who has a blind spot or who's lacking a skill and teach them how to do the skill. And the interesting part about it is it's not a hard skill, it's an internal skill, it's a soft skill. It involves looking into ourselves and really pulling out pieces of ourselves that might be asleep in there, or that might be just hiding in there, and they haven't really been tapped into in a while. Things like enthusiasm, things like empathy, things like objectivity, and being able to shift your perspective in the moment. And even the simple act, you and I talk about being present in the moment, and we take for granted that we know what that means. A lot of people don't know, well, what does that mean, being present in the moment? I'm here, aren't I? I'm right in front of you. So it's those kind of constructs, I guess, or concepts that I think people who are naturally good communicators take for granted that we probably shouldn't. And that's where I think the market opportunity is in this coaching space.
Listening is a very important part of all that you're mentioning, isn't it?
It is. It is. And we talk about magical conversations in my business.
I was
And
going to ask you about that. I saw that term, and by the way, I've taught non-credit courses on conversation because I think that we teach people how to speak in public. We teach them how to conduct meetings, but there's very little guidance on how to hold conversations. And that's what we do most of the time in social life and in business. I love teaching that. And when I taught speech communication at the University of Georgia in the basic speech course, I included one day on conversation. I had one student come up to me after the course and say, it was it was good that I learned how to speak before the group, but throughout this term, it has been better for me that I learned how to converse with people. So, what is it with magical conversation?
I use the word magical conversations because when we think of conversations, we often think of people talking to each other, output, 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 output. Magical conversations is conversations that come from a place of not knowing versus knowing. And what I mean by that is it's a conversation based around curiosity and openness and no expectation. And this is what I do with my clients. So a good magical conversation is all about the questions, because questions open up an opportunity for a person to explore options, look at alternatives they may not have thought before, they may not have even occurred to them before. And the great part about having a conversation is it's two people, which means when you get two brains into solving a problem, you get a lot more solutions generated than just one brain. And if one brain is asking questions, that generates the answers from the other person, as opposed to one person giving the other person answers. It's much more collaborative if it's a question-based conversation. And that's where I think the magic happens, because you have all this energy, and the questions prompt other questions, which prompt you to go in different directions. And it's just so nonlinear. And that nonlinear is like a brainstorm. And that's where solutions show themselves. They may not all be viable, but they're all interesting and they're all important, because sometimes the most harebrained solution will make you go, wait, that's crazy, but wait, what if we did this? So that's what I mean by magical conversations.
One of the keys that I have when I meet somebody new, one of the ways that they will favorably impress me is if they ask as many questions as I do. Sometimes at the end of an initial meeting with somebody, say we've been together 20 minutes, it's not as though I exactly scorekeep, but if it winds up that I'm the one asking every question, and so the focus is always on that other individual, then I'm thinking this is probably not somebody I want to spend a lot of time with. That's not being harshly judgmental. It's just saying that if they were inquisitive about me, that makes them far more attractive than anything they could say.
Questions are the key, I think, to any great conversation. And, it's so interesting because one of my favorite things to do is to moderate discussion panels. And I realize that the reason it's one of my favorite things is because I get to ask the questions. It's the perfect setup. It's the format of where I get to be the question asker, because one of my greatest gifts and maybe my greatest curses is that I am as curious now at this age as I was when I was 3.
Well, you were born in the shape of a question mark, it sounds like.
I'm like, right. Maybe I was. But yeah, so conversation is one of my favorite things in the world, but I find that I really do enjoy asking the questions more than talking about myself, which seems odd because I'm in a position today where I'm talking about myself, but I really prefer it the other way.
Well, you're talking about yourself because I invited you to describe your professional shift, which you've done very well. Monica, the clock races by when we're having a good time, and it has done that. I know that those who are fascinated with the approach that you're taking will want to get in touch with you. So please give us your contact information.
Well, my website is monicaricci.net, and that's important, net. And you can find me on Twitter at Monica Ricci. And you can find me on the phone at 404-663-3436.
I encourage you to get in touch with Monica. I've known her for more than 2 decades. It's been enheartening to see her development professionally and the way that she's helping so many people just like you and me. Any closing thoughts, Monica?
Yes, Bill. One of the things that I found myself saying lately is, why am I working so hard on self-improvement? And why am I working so hard to help other people get better? And I realized that the answer is, when we work hard on making ourselves better, we inspire the people around us to do the same thing. And when everybody is in the process of making themselves better, it makes the world better.
Terrific note to end on. Thank you. And since you've given your contact information, I'm glad to give mine. Bill Lampton, the Biz Communication Guy. So logically, my website is B-I-Z, bizcommunicationguy.com. I invite you to go to my website, check my services for corporations and leaders. Give me a call. We'll discuss your communication challenges and problems and how I can help you with them. Thanks again to Monica Ricci for being with us today with all this stimulating and informative visit that we've had. Be with us again next week for another fantastic guest on the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton.